All right, good morning. Dear participants and dear faculty advisors, on behalf of the case committee, the NHH faculty, and the case company that will be revealed shortly, we wish to welcome you all to the first day of case solving at NHH International Case Competition 2017. I hope you're all very excited for the case reveal that will come in a bit. We're going to keep you in suspense a bit more. So before we get to that, I am going to explain some rules and practical information before my colleague Johan will say a few words. So I guess you can describe my part of the presentation the same way that many of my friends describe me, as very, very boring, but kind of nice to know. And I'm glad you like that joke, because that's literally the only joke I have. There's no jokes left. But yeah, I think we can get right to it. We will give you the complete version of the rules on a USB stick that we will give you shortly before the case is handed out. The case will be handed out at 12 o'clock precisely today. You will have 24 hours until you present, 12 o'clock Thursday morning. The PowerPoint must be handed in half an hour before, so at 11:30, to a committee member that will be sitting in a room called U19, which we will show you afterwards. After the company reveal, we are going to bring you to a preparation room that you can use for the entirety of this day and tomorrow morning. But if you wish, you can also use your hotel room. You can use whatever resources you want, internet, books, databases, but you must not discuss the case with anyone else. So once the case is handed out, there will be no communications with your faculty advisor. So each team is given one USB stick, and on this stick, you will store your presentation when you hand it in. And also, when you receive it, the rules and format will be on that stick as a document. So it's very important that you don't lose this USB stick. And when handing it in at 11:30 tomorrow morning, a committee member will be sitting in U19 to receive it. So it's your responsibility to go to that designated room to hand it in. And we will help you with any technical difficulties that may arise, but at the end of the day, it's your own responsibility that the PowerPoint is on the USB stick and that it is handed in time. And the deadline of 11:30 is absolute. I should mention that when connecting to Wi-Fi, you can use the EduRoam network if you have a user account for that. You can just use the one you already have. If you cannot connect to the EduRoam, you can connect to the NHH Executive Network, and the password is executive. And this information will also be in the rules and format document, so you can read it later if you want. So for the preliminary rounds, technical things first, the PowerPoint should be a PPTX file, and the format should be widescreen. So advisors cannot communicate with teams until they have finished their final presentations, be it in the preliminary rounds or if they proceed to the final. So faculty advisors are not allowed to consult teams during case solving or during preparations of presentations. It's also important that you cannot of any kind tell or show where you're from, or what school you represent, when you present, or in your PowerPoint. And so for the groups. There are 3 groups. In each of the group, there are 4 teams. And 1 team from each of those groups will proceed to the final, that is on Friday morning. So there will be 3 finalist teams. And the finalists will be announced after dinner on Thursday evening. And then we will also disclose what teams the groups consisted of. In the preliminary rounds, you will have 15 minutes for your presentation, and after that, 10 minutes for a Q&A session. A timekeeper from the case committee will be in the room to notify when there's 5 minutes and 1 minute remaining, both of the presentation and the Q&A session. And in the final, teams will use the very same PowerPoint as they handed in on Thursday, so there will be no modifications of any kind to the PowerPoint after it's handed in 11:30 tomorrow. And in the final, you will have 50 minutes for presentation and 15, not 10, for the Q&A session. And we will notify you at 5 and 1 minute remaining. And the finalist teams are not allowed to watch the teams that go before them in the final round. But after they have presented, you may sit in the audience to see the remaining teams. And so, for some practical information. When presentations begin on Thursday, committee members will, well, first, after the case is handed in at U19, committee members will bring you from that room into this room, the aula, where at 12 o'clock, when presentations begin, we are going to bring the teams from the aula to the rooms they're going to present in. And there, the presentations will be ready up on screen, and we will provide you with a clicker so that you can begin your presentation shortly. And some convenient places that you may visit during the day at campus. We are here, as you can see, in the aula, and just down the road, there's a grocery shop at Emma 1000. It's open till 11, and you can get food, drinks, snacks, and so on, if you wish to go there. There's also, right next to it, a petrol station, Circle K, that is open 24 hours a day. So if you need to make some emergency food purchase or drinks, you can also go there. And right down the hall, there's a bookshop called Academica, where you can get office supplies. So if you need to get pens, notebooks, or post-it notes, or whatever, you can go there. And right next to that, in the end of the hall and to the right, when you exit the aula, if you get hungry and need dinner, you can go into the school cafeteria, say your name, say that you're from the competition, and you should be able to get a free meal. So you can have your dinner at school today, if you wish. And then, getting home. Make sure that you have your transportation cards. I hope you all have that. There are mainly 5 lines that go back to downtown from the school. And here are the last bus of each of those lines. And the very last bus of the night is 0:38 in the night. And if you have any trouble getting back to the hotel, if you need any help, please just contact any of the committee members, either by message or some of us will be at school for the whole day. You may direct any questions or if you need any clarification to what I just said, you may go to U19, to the room that we're going to show you afterwards, where the case committee members will be sitting most of the day to direct any questions. Or you can do it electronically. So that's actually it for the very boring but kind of nice to know part of the talk. And now I would like to invite Johan up on stage to give you a few words. Johan? Thank you.
So, that should make most of the things clear for the teams. Very well. We even managed to make them laugh in a rules and format, Morten. I think that's that's impressive. Okay, so I must admit that before you guys arrived, I was actually quite nervous because I was unsure of how are these people going to be? Like, who are these super students who travel around the world solving cases, presenting to like C-management of major companies and having like these crazy appendix slides and just It was so. Now I've had a couple of days to interact with you guys, and I think I found my answer, and that is that you're a cool bunch of people. You're a fun bunch of people, and you're actually people that I've really, really enjoyed being able to spend some time and have fun together. Because I believe we've had some fun. We've had the team building exercise, where you got to know each other across teams, across groups, communicating. We have come from all these different cultures. You have so many like different aspects and perspectives, and then you were just put into random groups and were asked to collaborate and make this all together to solve these different tasks. And I think you did well. And then we also had some keynotes, NHH Forum, but we also had this really warm and sunny fjord cruise. I don't know if you remember that one. So this is actually not like a waterfall, this is just the rain. And it's been fun. I think it's been really fun. But now the serious part starts. So the first I'm going to say briefly, because this is our first competition, and when you're walking down like a path unknown and hosting something for the first time, it can be quite challenging. It can be quite difficult. And when I first started this project, I knew barely nothing about case competitions. So I met with the NHH Case Club coach, and he had like this case presentation for dummies, presentation to me, and like told me about the international case competitions, and then I knew I was in over my head, like what have I gone into? So kind of felt like this. This is from the volleyball matches, by the way. You guys remember, yeah? And something changed because I had a committee. I had some really talented, great students who shared my passion for creating something new at NHH, who could provide help, who could who could assist sort of my weaker sides on this organization part. And that was pretty much like all sides. So they've done a great job and kind of made me this guy. That was when we beat the record, by the way. So that was like hour 40 or something. And I want to seize this opportunity to really, really thank the committee, to thank the members, because I wouldn't have like a snowball's chance in hell to done this without you. And that we're standing here now, like, and this journey from like an idea, we should host a case competition, to being here, seeing all of these teams from 4 different continents, it's an humbling experience. So, and I really, really want to give each and every one of you your proper thanks. A thank you isn't enough, but that's all I got. Thank you. And now, to the part you've all been waiting for. Because one of the first things that we found out when we were hosting this competition is that in order for it to be a successful competition, you need a great case. And to do so, you need a great case company. And we had some things that we wanted to do. So we wanted a specific sort of company. We wanted a company that represented Norway, like we do, but we also wanted it to be an internationally well-renowned company. And we wanted a company that represented the culture and the history of Norway, but we also wanted a company that needs to innovate, that needs to change, that was it's funny, so funny, sorry, I can't see everybody noting. But we also wanted a company that was forced to change. And we wanted a company that represented some of the major challenges that the entire world stands up against now. And there was one company that ticked off all the boxes, that was perfect. And I'm proud to say that that is our case company. So, without further ado, I am proud to present the case company, Statoil. And then we should have a video really coming down right now, yeah?
Vi ønsker å prøve noe nytt, og vi vet vi kan feile. Vi er fullstendig klar over det, men den sjansen tar vi.
The floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, good. My name is Dag Jonskor. I'm Vice President in Statoil, working in the oil and gas division right now. I'm in charge of production from an oil field in North Sea. So that is my current job. We in Statoil are very proud to be the case provider for this first international case competition at NHH. It's important for us to interact with students, with academia, and we're going to give you a really challenging case, and it's going to be interesting to see your answers. I'm sure it's going to be great. Because I know that you guys are here, you're probably the best people from your schools analytically, and you're also probably pretty good at talking. And then it's going to be good. Yeah. What I will do, I will take you through a little bit of Statoil, what kind of company it is, our vision. Then I will talk a little bit about our decision criteria. I think you can listen up on that because that's important for a case, I think. What we use as foundation for how we make decisions. Then I'll talk about our values, which are also important in taking decisions. And then at the end, I will pitch our graduate program to you with application deadline, 31st of October. But that's for master students. I don't know if you're masters yet. I must say, though, incredible good introductions from you guys. I see you prepare really well. And that thing you said about the case has to be finished by 11:30, that struck a core with me. I did my MBA in Canada at the Ivy School of Business, for those who Canadians stay in the school. And there was like 2-3 cases every day for two years. So I know what you're going to go through doing a case. But it's an incredible good way of learning. I mean, it puts you straight in the position of those who work to make decisions. And I feel that in working life, I've been working for 25 years, 20 years in Statoil. It's just a continuous stream of cases. So this is a very good way of preparing for working life. Statoil. Statoil grew up with the Norwegian oil and gas industry. Oil and gas was found on the Norwegian continental shelf in the 1960s. Statoil was founded in 1972. So we have about 40 plus years now, 40, 50 years of history, and have become a big company. Statoil is, by capitalization, by far the biggest Norwegian company, but twice the next company on the list, a bank. To put it in international perspective, we are a Fortune 500 company ranked around 200 if you compare on revenues. So it's a big company. 20,000 employees, located around 30 plus countries. And our purpose is use our competence, our technology, to provide energy for a growing population. And do this in a responsible way, and to create value for our shareholders and the communities which we operate. To say a little bit about our business, we are oil and gas all over the world. Norwegian shelf is about 50%, so we are big on Norwegian shelf, but also in Brazil, in the US, onshore, offshore, Canada, Angola, Tanzania, well, almost anywhere there is oil and gas will be. But we also have a growing business. We've been working for many years with renewables. I myself, a couple of jobs back, worked in the renewable part, particularly within windmills. And we have built several windmill parks on the coast of UK, which are in production. And so that might be a little bit teaser on what the case is going to be coming towards when you get to it. Statoil's vision, shaping the future of energy. The energy business, the oil and gas business we're working in, is like many other industries. It is a very complex context. Prices go up and down, and our CEO gets often a question, so what do you think about the oil price? And I think the answer is, and you guys as business majors probably, you know that if you knew that, you didn't have to do all the work to try to find it and extract it. You could just buy and sell it on the commodity market. So it is a complex in terms of prices, raw materials. It is a complex in terms of climate. Statoil are a believer in climate change and the science behind it, and will work to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, the ambitions to reduce climate effects of our operations. So cyclical market, energy systems in transition, going towards electrification. I don't know if you've seen it, but in Norway we have a lot of electrical cars. I know it's not like that everywhere else, but I think it's coming. I remember we did a strategy in Statoil a few years ago. We thought, okay, 2040, and suddenly we had to update it, and it was 2030, and now it might be 2020, I don't know. So it's really, things are going just much faster than when we expect. So what can we do? Our goal is to be competitive at all times. Any type of oil prices, gas prices, any market we are in. So continue to work at our operations to be lean. Then we want to be part of the transforming the oil and gas industry, and by that we're thinking about how to make it less carbon heavy. First of all, maybe on how we operate, so we have a lot of focus on reducing emissions for our own operations. And then we are moving into renewables. We've been in it for quite a long time. There was a merger some years ago between two Norwegian companies, Statoil and Hydro. Hydro had worked with windmills for quite a long time. But it's been slow going. But now there's major investments, and we have a state target of having about 15-20% of our investments renewable by 2030. And I think that number is going to be higher or lower, but that is an ambition. To say a little bit about capital, we have an investment program annually about $11 billion US dollars. So a little bit to the principles that guide our decisions. I know you get a few pages from our corporate strategy, and these are things that are important for us when we make decisions. I'll take the three first ones in sort of like one go because they're sort of similar. But cash generation capacity at all time, capex flexibility, and capture value from cycles. By this we mean that it's important for us we don't have to have profitability in everything we do, and not everything short term, but we have to generate cash to pay our bills. We can borrow, but and Statoil has a good debt to equity rate at the moment, and have capacity to borrow, but it's important to generate cash, and it's important to maintain flexibility. So we like to have optionality in our decisions. So it's possible to put on the brakes if things go a different direction than we expect. So options, if possible, good to have. And third, we like to be smart. Can't say we always have been smart, but we always agree we should be smart and work through the cycles. It's difficult, of course, when cycles are down, prices down, you have low revenues, then there's suddenly a lot of good opportunities, and if you believe in the future. So we like to keep our options so we have possibility for buying something or investing when the cycles are down, counter-cyclical. So these are three of the principles. And the third goes on low carbon advantage. We see it as imperative, competitive advantage to have the lowest footprint from our operations. Our operations do have emissions, no doubt, but we can have the lowest emissions amongst those in this industry. And we are very competitive at this time. But what we will do is that we embed the climate into our strategy, into our incentives, into our decision making. That means that any projects, I just recently got a project through our corporate committee, and then I have to show how this will be on carbon emissions. So that is a criteria. It's just not financials, it's also you have to improve our positions on carbon emissions. And then we'll develop a business to support the Paris Agreement. And that also means that I move towards renewables. We like to say we are a value-based company. Now, many companies, of course, every company has values, and they can look very similar. But for us, our values are important in terms of how we interact with others. It's important that we behave ethically in everywhere we are, and that we withdraw instead of going further if we see this is something that might bring us into wrong areas. We seek zero harm to people and environment, and this is very important in Statoil. And we use this as decision criteria. We also use it in evaluation of performance evaluations. Like me, for example, of course, evaluated on delivery. There are some expectations, there are some KPIs, there are some targets on revenues, cost, this type of thing, but also on behavior. And that is 50-50. That is as important as the delivery. So if you deliver, but have done this in a way which is not viewed as good in terms of cooperation with other people, you will get a talk. So we really use this in our business, in our decisions, in how we behave, but also in evaluation, and then finally pay raises. It's not one-to-one links, but it's linked that way. That was an introduction to Statoil. Now I'm going to pitch a little bit our graduate program and other things that we have to offer to students. We have 3 possible things that you can apply for, and we like to have good people apply to our positions. It's a graduate program. It's a 2-year program. Next one is now 31st of October deadline. We have a summer internship that's 6 to 8 weeks. Will come up on our internet around December. And then we also have possibility for writing thesis for those who come to a PhD type of level. But it's all on our internet page, and we encourage anybody that's interested to look into this. This graduate program will take up. We have about 70 people in this year. We will have about 100, I think, next time. So the ambition is to have about 100 times. We're trying to be non-cyclical on this also. That's difficult. We do move with the cycles, but ambitions is to try to keep this steady. We have the demographics of the company so that a lot of people can retire, and we need to fill up with young and enthusiastic people with talent. So in this program, one are put into all different parts of the company in Norway and internationally. And then there's a structured program where one gets exposed to many different things. So when the time is right for you, I encourage you to look at that. I'm sure there's many talents here. So with that, I'm going to leave the word over to Helene. Helene is going to take you through the case. Helene comes from the New Energy Solutions Group. I'm going to give you a lot more interesting details about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dag. I'll just put my notes here in case I need to reference them. So I'm really excited to be here today. I think we started our conversation with NHH in November. And a little bit about myself. I head up innovation in Statoil's New Energy Solutions. And it's a unit that's organized together with strategy. So what I'd look for is business innovation, not so much technology innovation. And the case we have for you, which I will eventually get to, give you some context first, is actually something that I want to know the answer. This is not something where I know the answer, but I'm putting together a case so you can try it out. I actually want to know the answer. Let's see, here I can look at. So I want to talk a little bit about New Energy Solutions. It's a new unit for Statoil. It's a little over 2 years old. And it's set up both to build a new renewable leg for Statoil, but also to handle the low carbon solutions for our oil and gas activity, so extend the lifetime of our oil and gas activity. This particular slide, Eldar Sætre, our CEO, presented to investors in February, and it stated a fairly ambitious and bold plan for renewables. So the whole point is, it is to build a profitable energy business. It's not about greenwashing. It's really about building into a new type of company. I want to, first of all, I'm giving you some context now because this will help you when you present your answers. So what is it that we're looking for? Well, we're looking for an industrial approach. Although the oil price has been low and it has hit our books, we are a well-financed and robust company. And we're looking not to enter into renewables and be a renewable player through finance. We want to be an industrial partner. We want to actually operate things. We want to run things. That's what we're good at. We don't just want to invest, we want to run it. And what we look at is we want to use the expertise and the competence that we have from our oil and gas. We see that it is relevant, but we also recognize that we're entering into a new segment where we're not 100% experts. When Statoil in oil and gas goes into any other field, any other area, we tend to be fairly good at and market leading in what we do. When we move into renewables, we're fairly good at some of the segments, but we are actually moving into areas where we've never been before. So it's something about finding the balance of what can we rely on from our core and how can we complement that? How can we acquire a different competitive strength that we don't already have or mitigate our weaknesses? We're looking for scale and technology. So a lot of people feel very passionate about renewables, and I get inundated with ideas and reflections from people who, over the dinner table, talk about their power bill and how they want to have solar panels on the roof. That's fantastic. But I'm not talking about a solar panel on your roof. I'm talking about big, scalable material operations that really mimic the size and scale of what we have in oil and gas. And we're looking to do this long term. So that's what I mean, and that's what we will look for when we see an industrial approach. This is value-driven. We have a nice graph here showing, and I will come back to this in many, many slides, unless I'm thrown off the floor. We see that the incentive schemes have been instrumental in making renewables competitive, but we do see that subsidies are falling because the industry doesn't need them anymore. It is competitive without it. That's nice because it means for the consumer it becomes cheaper to get renewable energy. It's not so nice in the sense it just makes it much more competitive, and it means that the risk is not just technical, but it's a market risk. And we believe that we have something to offer there because we are a company that handles market risk. We have traders. We have a commercial presence in the market. So we don't just produce, we also sell it to the market. We see that the attractiveness of our projects, they are profitable. And this is important. So Dag comes from our oil and gas side. The projects that renewable comes with has to compete with Dag's projects. Statoil has a certain amount of money and will only award money to the really good projects. It so happened that in 2016, there were 5 major investment decisions taken by Statoil. 3 of them were renewable. We were very much helped by the oil price, but still. But it doesn't mean that we will have that same type of percentage of renewables in the investment decisions this year or next year. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Dag mentioned the 15 to 20% of capex in 2030. So Eldar was quite bold. He was very clear. He said that in 2030, 15 to 20% of investments in Statoil can come from renewables. It's not given, but we see that the potential in this is sufficiently large that it can actually be a fifth of the investments. But of course, it does mean we need to have some capex to invest. So 20% of zero is still zero, but it shows the ambition. But it's not a blank check. Does not mean that 2030, you're given a certain amount of money. This is something I'm going to skip. New energy solutions, I told you already, it's got two distinct legs. We're going to talk about the new renewable today. But you need to know that we cover and we are an integrated part also of our oil and gas business. What we do today is offshore wind. We do bottom-fixed offshore wind. We have, I'm trying to count because I have it on the next slide, but I think we have five parks. 3 parks are in operation and 2 are coming. We have bottom-fixed, which is our biggest section. We also have floating. Actually, we are unique. We have a unique technology, Hywind, which allows you to go further offshore to greater depths where there's more wind. It's unfortunately more expensive, but we have a unique technology around it, so we're trying to build around that. The case is not going to be about Hywind. We're looking at solar. So the reason for being an offshore wind might make sense in terms of our offshore oil and gas installations. Solar, we believe we have to be in because it's just too big it's just too big to ignore. But it does mean we're entering into an area where we're just not familiar. The counterparties are different. The technology is different. But we do believe we have something to offer. We have a presence in over 30 countries. Many of them have very good solar conditions. We have a strong stakeholder relationships. We are a reliable company. We pay our bills. We care about the community, and we want the community we're in to prosper alongside with us. We also do storage. Still very small for us, but we are now, I think in September, we took an investment decision to develop a battery together with our floating wind farm in Scotland, which basically will allow us to. So the issue around renewables is when the wind doesn't blow, you don't produce any power. So if you can put a battery around it, it means that you can deliver wind into the system a little bit later, or either when the wind doesn't blow, or a little bit later. Because when all the wind parks are producing, the prices really go down to zero. If you can then release your power into the market a little bit later, you can actually make more money from it. And then also we do something very exciting around CCS and hydrogen, but that is for a different case. Offshore wind. This makes total sense for us being an oil and gas company. So first of all, we're an oil and gas company with a renewable leg. Safety is our first and utmost priority. This is the first time I've been to a conference where we haven't started with a safety drill. So it's very important. And whereas oil and gas might have more dramatic effect if something goes wrong, if we have a major incident in our renewable business, as we're just about to grow, I don't think we'll be allowed a second chance. So safety is as important to us as it is to our oil and gas brothers and sisters. Large, complex projects. We love complexity. If it's really, really difficult, if our engineers can really, really struggle and figure things out, we love it. We love technical complexity. Not so happy with commercial complexity. And we tend to joke that our biggest fear is to have 600,000 invoices to send out. But we are good at complex projects, and if you look at some of the oil and gas projects that have been around, these are mega projects. They take years to build. They are unique in their ways. If you are a documenter buff like myself, you will have spent very many late hours at night watching the biggest mega projects, and Statoil has many of those. Marine operations, again, something that really fits into what we do. We have, I didn't know how many meteorologists we have. We have a lot. We can tell you everything there is about waves, wind conditions, etc., which was really, really handy when the weather pages, the detailed weather pages was available on our internet. Very, very convenient when you're planning your weekend. You knew exactly the wind conditions where you're going. But we do actually use them for our business as well. And we're present in many, many countries, and we have robust supply chain to develop into offshore wind. Offshore wind, however, is a niche. I'll show you some graphs around that. It's a niche, it's very small compared to others, and it's growing in maturity, and what we are hoping to do in that particular sector is to help mature the business and bring costs down. And around technology and innovation, which is a lot of what I do. So we have huge research facilities available through our oil and gas brothers and sisters, which allow us, as a small company, basically, New Energy Solutions is 250 people. Statoil is 22,000 people. DPN, where Dag comes from, is 9,000 people. We're 250. But we get to use all that expertise that Dag and the others have built up, because a lot of things are common. For instance, it's not a very well-known fact, but Statoil is actually the second largest power producer in Norway. We operate more than 50 power plants, and we operate them offshore, where there's no backup system if you haven't made it yourself, and there's zero room for failure. That is a skill set that we can bring into the power sector within renewables. I can also talk about the 500 programmers that we have and how I get to work with some of the best IT minds in the country. But that's, but it just means we have an availability of resources, which is almost limitless. This is just a little bit about the size and scale of it. Basically, we're looking at 300, 400 megawatt parks. So no, the one solar panel or the 9 solar panel on your roofs is not really comparable unless you really, really, really scale it up. Yeah, this one I bring to you just to understand where we are on the learning curve. So in our oil and gas activity, we've been doing that for 40 years. We're really good at it. Really, really, really good at it. We like to think we're getting good at renewables. We've been working in renewables for more than 15 years. So it's not as if we just started doing it 2 years ago, but we didn't have the ambition level, we didn't have the scale, and we didn't have the expectations resting on our shoulders. Before Easter, so before the 1st of April, we had no operated assets. We were not operators of a single wind park. Once the formality of the startup is done, we're operating 3 this year. One, Sheringham Shoal, Statkraft was the operator, that's transitioned to us. Dudgeon, the 67 turbines have been installed, but we just want to make sure that Siemens has tested it all so it works, and then we will formally take operatorship. And we have Hywind Scotland, which is a floating pilot. So we're still small and a young company within a very robust, and I don't know if 40 years is old, but I guess in this comparison it is. So this is just a little bit of a highlight of what it looks like in New Energy Solutions. We're investing in offshore wind, we're investing in CCS, and we're investing in solar. Now, solar is interesting because we're going into a market where we don't know. In order to, rather than write lots of reports about how can we get better, what should we do in solar, we're looking to enter into one particular project or find an attractive project or more, be part of that as a partner, and then if we see that we cannot make money in solar, we will exit within 18 to 24 months. We're evaluating hydrogen, that's clean hydrogen. We're evaluating onshore wind. We were in onshore wind a couple of years ago. We had quite a few wind leases in Norway, but we saw the prices in Norway were not developing in a way that was attractive for us. We also saw that with the green certificates, which was the main incentive scheme, a lot of the green certificates were going to better projects in Sweden. We may not have had the best partners. We may not have had the best projects, although quite a few. One of them actually is actually in operations now, delivering energy to Google, just south of where I live. But also, from time to time, a large company like ours is asked to focus. And onshore wind just didn't seem to fit. Now, why do I bring that up? Because I want you to tell me Statoil's entry strategy for onshore wind. It's easy, right? So why is wind attractive? So this is just to give you a little bit of background. You can Google it, I know you're very good at it. I'll give you a little bit of background anyway. There's plenty of untapped wind resources in the world. This is what's exciting about renewables. It means that countries that were energy poor are potentially now energy rich. And you can see we really want the bit that's kind of green yellow, and it'd be great if it was red. That's really good, reliable power sources. We've typically looked at the stuff that's onshore, but we see that there's very, very attractive wind resources all over. We see, let me see, can I get the pointer here? If you see the offshore wind, it's the tiny, tiny, tiny light blue wedge, and then you compare it to onshore wind. Then you understand why it would be interesting to look at onshore wind, because offshore wind is a niche. But please also bear in mind to put aside all the political discussions and realize that even in ambitious forecasts that we see from Bloomberg, which tends to be quite ambitious, renewables will be about 50% of the power mix. It won't replace all of it. But the growth from very little to 50% means a lot of investments will be taking place going forward. Yeah, this is just more detailing it out. Again, you see offshore wind still pretty little, but you also see why solar is too big to miss. Here is a little bit about where we see future growth markets in a very near-term perspective. I mean, it's great to talk about ambitions for 2050, but really what's happening in the next couple of years. I bring you this chart because it's very interesting to see that there are some countries that are fairly ambitious about it. Please also note that particularly emerging economies are very interesting because they will grow a lot of new resources. So it's really about balancing the switch that Germany, UK, US are doing from fossils to renewables, to countries such as Brazil, which is just looking to just bring on more power generation. And interestingly enough, this is the second year in a row where if you look at the new power generation capacity that has come on stream, it has been renewable. So most of the new power capacity that's being built is renewable energy. The reason is this. So just a hint, I was told, no, don't tell them anything about how they should solve it. Please don't make this about climate. This is about business. What does this tell us? So the LCOE is the levelized cost of energy. What does it take to deliver, to produce energy? What's the cost to produce energy? See, coal kind of flat. See, it's dollars there, so it's around a little bit below $80 per megawatt hour. CCGT is gas. So these are global figures. If we look at the only area where we see that gas is actually competing with the renewables price-wise is US with shale. But you see, if you were to build a new power plant and you powered it with gas, so both today and in 2040, it would be way more expensive than building renewable capacity. You see the coal's kind of flat there. Be interested to see where Donald Trump's subsidy scheme for coal, which they announced yesterday or the day before, how that's going to play out, but that's going to be the US anyway. The world is really going towards renewable energy, and all countries have renewable energy. They all have sun, they all have wind. And you see these prices are coming down. And these are not prices necessarily relying on subsidies. Subsidies are more and more going away. So you're literally competing and producing the best, the cheapest form of energy available for countries. So if you're Jordan, for instance, you don't have to import oil and gas from your neighbors. You can just produce from your own resources. And this has been We talk a lot about the Energiewende in Germany. Of course, it was also about meeting the climate ambitions, but it was also about resilience and energy independence. Don't underestimate that need. What are we doing for time, by the way? I can talk for hours. Here, a little bit, this is just comparing the LCOE with offshore versus onshore. I'm bringing you this just to show what a dramatic cost, how dramatic costs have come down on offshore as well. So it has been that offshore and onshore have been very, very different sectors. It has been very different players. Offshore has been much more complex, much more expensive, but we are actually seeing that offshore wind is very near grid parity. It means unsubsidized. It also means that offshore wind could transform both the market, it could become a bigger market, but it could also mean that different players are entering it. What we see, for instance, in one of the auctions that was it this spring or was it just before Christmas, in Borssele in Netherlands, where Shell won a lease, and they won it in a consortium between Shell, Enaco, which is a utility company, Mitsubishi, which is a turbine producer, and a fourth company that I can never remember. The point is, you see different players going in. In oil and gas, it's oil and gas companies that form the consortium that bid for leases. All of a sudden, we have the turbine producers, the suppliers being part of the consortium running and operating wind farms. But you still see onshore is much more, has a much lower cost of production than offshore wind. And this is just now, 2017. This is just to show that there's really not a global price on power. It is very different to produce power in Japan than it is on onshore wind in Japan than it is to do in Germany or in the US. So whereas oil prices, they're commoditized, you can put them on a ship, you can send them anywhere. This is not how it works with power. It's localized markets. Again, you can see that the cost of turbines, they will continue to drop, but again, these are localized figures. It's different. Chinese turbines are cheaper than other turbines. The issue around offshore wind is at least they're not big enough, but on onshore wind that could be different. And they're becoming increasingly powerful. It's the size of the turbine that's actually driving cost here. The bigger the turbines are, the lower the cost of producing wind. And they just keep getting bigger and bigger. Here, a little bit about understanding the onshore wind value chain. This is not, I don't think this one is in your package. So if I see people are taking their phones out. This is just to understand, and we're talking about utility scale. So when I say utility scale, I just mean large megawatt parks. I mean, there are smaller schemes available. The manufacturing side, very, very competitive. Basically, the Chinese taking that market. The planning and development and construction side, that's where we feel very comfortable as a company. That's what we do. We build oil and gas fields, we build wind parks. It's the project development, it's the financing, it's setting up the consortium and ownership model, sharing the cost basically, and putting the whole thing together. And then you have the operations. Each market is different, but it's still, operations is operations. And then you have the distribution side and the end use. We typically would be in the project and operation side. To some extent, we trade and we deliver energy into the wholesale market. Each market, as I've said, almost to be boring here, it's very different. Each market is unique. So it's particular in Europe that with interconnectors, there is the level of interconnectedness. But basically, if you produce wind in the UK, you can't sell it in Kuala Lumpur. You can try, but you can't physically. Then you have to be only a trading activity. You can't physically get the power across the globe. So this is just to show a little bit about where in the value chain is interesting. However, we see a lot of very interesting changes happening around digitalization and around the distribution side. But it is heavily regulated. We see, so in summary, the onshore wind turbine market is highly competitive. It's in offshore wind turbine market, I think there are 2, 3 producers. Onshore wind, there are more. It's a lot of off-the-shelf technology. Again, that is very different from us as a company to deal with off-the-shelf technology. We have 3, I think, research centers that do all kinds of, well, research into technology. We like to build our own. Here, you're competing again off-the-shelf, typically Chinese-made solutions. And for those of you who are not Norwegian, although diplomatic relations between Norway and China has normalized, it was a little bit iffy for a period when the Norway-based Nobel Committee gave the Nobel Peace Prize to a Chinese dissident. Diplomatic relations have returned, but it has, hint, hint, made China a little bit of a difficult collaboration partner for us as a company. We believe that the value in projects lie with project development. It could be in your research that you find out that's something else. I'll be happy to hear about that. And it could be that you really need to look at a completely different business model in order to extract money. Again, I'd be curious to hear about that. So your task, very simple. Although when Dag saw this, he was like, oh my God, that's such a difficult task. I know, but you guys are good, right? Your task is to develop the entry strategy for Statoil onshore wind. I want to know where to play. I want to know when to play. Bearing in mind that we have a 2030 ambition, but let's not make all the investments in 2029. But most importantly, I want you to tell me how to play. In your pack, we've included some suggested strategies. This is not for you to decide to give us an evaluation of which strategy is better. We want you to pick one. It can be one of the 4, it can be a different of the 4, it can be something completely different. I've now given you a lot of feedback or a lot of information around the context in which your entry strategy will be considered. But one of the things you could look at is that you enter into an emerging market using our existing presence from oil and gas, using our existing foothold. It could be Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, Brazil. A similar approach is you could enter into an emerging market using a business to business. So the first one is more about developing a wind park that feeds into the grid. Then you could have a wind park that builds on our actual operations, maybe bundle some of the products that we have, but have more a business-to-business approach. There are companies that are really looking to have green power, clean power as part of their fuel base. The question is, do they want to pay a premium? Or you can consider partnerships with a strong financial partner. There are companies doing that. And then you have the kind of oddball one for us. You see all of these are hint, hint, saying emerging markets. Again, I'm leaving it up to you. But come and tell me what it should look like. But on the final one, think about a scalable new business model. So I've told you again and again, I want big, I want scalable, I want materiality, I want industrial, right? Well, yeah, but is the first step that? Is there a new, different business model that can scale? It has to be able to scale in time. Then look maybe at medium-scale activities first. I'd be really curious. But you need to pick the entry strategy that you believe in. And with that, I wish you luck.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I realized since I only had one joke in my talk earlier today, I've just been sitting here trying really hard to come up with like a funny pun, but didn't really manage to that. Like, oil, try harder next time? No. No, so my promise to you will be to ramp up my joke production and say something funnier on Friday. I see Johan just going like, ugh, we're not going to get any work done the next few days. No, but seriously, thank you, Statoil, for a very nice presentation. This is a big day for all of us. We have kept this company a secret for a long time. I have an aunt who works in Statoil, so I've been looking forward to this day as well because I can finally call her up and say, hello, how do kids? Guess who's the case company for our competition? And before you ask, no, I will not give you her number so you can ask her any question. That's strictly forbidden. But yeah, I've actually done a few of these case competitions myself. So when I look at you, I really know how it feels like. I really know the excitement you're feeling now. You're very eager to get the case. I see some of you with your computers up. You've probably been Googling like crazy during this presentation. I know how hard you're going to work throughout the day, throughout the night probably as well, and how stressful it's going to be when you're practicing your presentation tomorrow. And because I know how it feels, personally, I'm looking so much forward to see what you are able to come up with this case. And on the other hand, personally, I'm looking very much forward knowing how hard you're going to work, how much work you're going to put into this. It's going to be very nice for me to just do nothing at all tonight, knowing that you are working your asses off. No, but seriously, I've seen the case. It's a very challenging, but a very exciting case. So I'm looking forward to see many cool presentations on Thursday and Friday. So what's going to happen now is that we are going to bring all of the teams to your preparation rooms. So I'm going to bring up 3 members of my case committee, Johan, Steinar, and Sandra. And they are going to take 4 teams each to the presentation rooms. So actually we can just start saying the schools. So you could start packing up your things and getting ready to move on. Should we start with, we can start with Steinar. This is Steinar. So with Steinar, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, will be going with him. QUT, you will be going with him. University of Auckland, and the University of Minster. So you can just follow Steinar out the room. He will be waiting at the door for everyone to come follow him, and he'll show you which rooms you're going to present in. And this is Sandra. Sandra will bring Shantou University, BI, Norwegian Business School, University of Alberta, and the University of Birmingham. So those 4 schools can join Sandra, find her at the exit, and she will show you your room. And there should be 4 teams left, if I'm able to count correctly, that will be going with Johan. Babish Bolyai, Berkeley House, Queen's University, and NHH, Norwegian School of Economics. So please go with Johan. And the best of luck on your presentations. I'm looking very much forward to seeing them.